I'm going to show you how I sculpted my Goblin collectible. After designing a Goblin that I thought would make a good collectible, I did a couple of turns to show him from different directions to help me when I start 3D sculpting. I'm working in Nomad Sculpt on the iPad. I typically start by sculpting the character's head and then build the body onto that. The goal at this stage is to start with basic shapes to get the proportions of the character down before doing any detailing. I make the armor on the helmet by making a mask selection and then extracting a thick piece. You can then use the trim tool to cut off what you don't need. I also want to use basic shapes to build the character quickly so I can feel a sense of progress. Here for the face plates, I used a square, trimmed it to a shape I like, and then mirrored it to the other side. To create the nostrils, I use the mask tool and the inflate tool. The basic idea is to think of a shape that will get you the closest to what you're wanting. For example, these ears, I used a rectangle and then carved out the ear shape. For the spikes, I used a cone and then reduced the sides to 4 to make it into a 4-sided spike. Then you simply clone it and mirror it to create all the spikes. For the eye slits in the helmet, you mask off the shape you want and then use the gizmo tool to push it back into the helmet. With the head blocked out, I can now move on to building the body. The next part of the process is the same, which is to use basic shapes that get me the closest to what I'm wanting for each part of the Goblin. I build the arms in mirror mode so that I'm sculpting both sides at the same time. Once you have the basic shapes down, you can then use the mask tool and the move tool to extract or pull other shapes out of those ones that you've created. I have learned that 3D sculpting is a lot like using traditional clay. There's a lot of cutting, moving, pasting, and removing clay till you get the shape you like. Once I have all the basic parts of the body there, I can then scale it to fit the way I wanted it to. I use the flatten tool to bevel the knuckles on his hands, and then extract a thumb using the mask and gizmo tool. And then I created a chisel crease tool to separate the fingers. Then I clone the fist and use the symmetry tool, clicking X, Y, and Z to rotate it to the other side. The lasso trim tool was used for carving out his blade, and the polygon trim tool was used for cutting out the teeth. Nomad Sculpt is such a great program. It's taken me a while to learn the tools, but the more I use the program, the quicker I get, and then you learn shortcuts. This Goblin only took about 5 or 6 hours to sculpt from beginning to end. To create the belt going around his torso, I simply masked off the area I wanted the belt and then extracted a shape. One of the funnest things to sculpt was his meat cleaver that's strapped to his back. With all the parts of the body blocked out, the final step is adding some details. I made a basic belt buckle that's going on to his belt. For the mouth, I used the selection mask tool and the gizmo tool. I then extracted a shape for the teeth and cut them in half using the polygon trim tool. I then used my chisel crease tool to carve in some details. The solo view option allows you to work on one piece at a time. I kept referencing the original design to remind me of where little details would go. I created his nails by extracting a piece that was masked off and setting them into the foot. With the Goblin now sculpted, I'm ready to move on to the Barbarian collectible.